Alright guys, we're back with the Acadia. We're going to place that water pump. We just took off our wheel well cover. It's held down by a bunch of Torx going along the side, and on the bottom it's T20. Then a bunch of little plastic tabs. You only have to do this half of the shield. Don't worry about the back part. Just pop it off like that. And now we can get a view of the tensioner under there and our water pump. So we're going to tear down the top. So some people take off the headlight and the bumper so they can get access to it. For sure, we're gonna get this mount out of the way. I want to see if maybe I can just do it from underneath here. We'll see. I don't know. For sure, I gotta get that fuse box out of the way, that fuse plate. And I guess if you remove the light, you have room from up top. But I don't know if I'm gonna remove the light. I might just remove the fuse box and the mount, and then kind of just work it from up top and down here. So we'll see. Then we do have oil leaking from somewhere. I'm gonna try to track that down once we get all this apart, but for now, this is where we're at so far. Jacked it up, my stand, remove the wheel, it's gonna be a lot easier. So, alright, next step, break those bolts on the water pump first, then take all the top parts off, and then we'll do the belt last, and then we'll get going from there. Alright guys, I loosened up the bolts from down here, and then I just took my 10mm wrench, came up, broke them loose. They were pretty loose, but if your pulley spins, then you can hook something onto the pulley. There's little holes going around it so it don't spin on you, but this one was strangely pretty easy. So they're loose. We can continue. The belt kind of cracked. I'm gonna have to replace that, but we'll see. Look at this. Oh, that's from the water pump. So it has nothing to do with the water pump, but look at this. The wheel's not even turned all the way, and look at how stretched out this brake hose is already. That does not look right. That does not look right. Looks already got so much tension on it. I don't even know how this thing's surviving. That does not look right to me. And we got the 210mm from the coolant reservoir. We're gonna get that out. We're gonna unbolt the battery cable, and then we're gonna pop our fuse box out and then take that plate off. And then we're gonna do our mount. And we should have some access to it. So let's get this out of the way. Alright, battery cables are out. Just put a latex glove on them. Take them up with electrical tape. And then we're just gonna pop these little tabs and get this box out. And then we're gonna get our plate off and then our mount. This was 13. Alright guys, I'm not gonna take apart the fuse box. I'm just gonna push it over. I did unbolt that ground just to give me more slack, or else you're not gonna be able to push it over. And then I'm gonna pop this harness here, which goes to the light. I'm not gonna disconnect the light. I'm just gonna pop it from right here. And I might disconnect the fog light and then the horn here. And then I should be able to pull the whole fuse box over on top of the engine. And then we have complete access to this plate and the mount, and then we could get it. I'm not going to remove the headlight. I'm not going to take apart the bumper. I'm just going to do everything from up top and down below. Alright, we unplug the fog light, the horn, and then pop the harness from there. And now we're just going to use a bungee just to keep it all on this side. And now I'm going to remove my 10mm. There's 3 of them on this plate. And then this plate should come out. Then we're going to do the strut mount here, or I guess it's like a strut mount, motor mount. Get that out of the way, and then we have complete access to the water pump and the tensioner pulley, so we can get the belt off, then get the pump pulley off, and then get the pump off, and then we'll reinstall everything. We've been at it for like 30 minutes, so hopefully this goes quick. I'm trying to do all this extra work. It's pointless. I use an extension to get that 10mm nut on the plate, and this one right here. And I took my extension, get the last one, and now the plate's ready to come out. There's the plate. There we go. I believe one of these harnesses is tied up to it. So just finesse it out. But see, the plate's already off. And look, as we go under here, guys, we found that our dog bone mount is completely shot. It's completely torn through. So we're gonna replace that while we're in here, and everything's torn apart. So let's find out what this is. I think it's like a 15, 17. Let's find out. Alright, look at the mount. It's a torque mount, dog bone as they call it, and it is a 15mm. We're gonna break this one, we're gonna break this one, and then we're gonna take these 2 off from the bracket. So I was hoping to get away with not removing the upper hose, but I might still try. I might just remove this mount and leave this bracket on and see if I could get in there with it, because I can squeeze everything in through there. I don't have an issue. I get to see everything clearly from there, from underneath. So let's try that first. If I can't, then I'll remove the hose. I want to lose as little possible, as little coolant possible. So let's see. All right, so we got our 2 bolts, 15mm. One's a long one and one's a short one. Don't mess them up. The short one goes on top, the long one goes on the bottom. And then there is a way of removing this thing. there's a specific way it comes out and it goes in, so you gotta find the sweet spot. There's a specific little angle so you can get it out. To come out it's easy, but to put it in, you need to get it right in this little area and just keep moving it around. Alright guys, I'm really just gonna try to put it in from up top here without removing this mount. I should have no issue getting the pump in there. I should be able to finesse it, remove this, turn this out of the way a little bit. I can get all my bolts out. I got my 2 bolts from the water pump pulley from up top, and get my other 2 from down below. But before I take them off all the way, I'm gonna loosen my tensioner and get my belt off. But first I'm gonna make a diagram of how the belt is run, so I don't have no issues putting it back on. And then after I remove my water pump pulley, I'm gonna start taking the pump off itself. So let's get it. Alright guys, I thought I had a tensioner ratchet, or that special one to remove it. I thought it was a 3/8. It's actually a 1/2 inch, and I didn't have it. So what I did is I just stuck a screwdriver in there, pushed my tensioner down, and then I just took my belt off of my power steering pump. So, and I'm probably gonna replace the belt, and I'm going to replace my tensioner. So we'll deal with that later. But pretty much gonna do the same thing when I put my new one in. But let's continue. I'm gonna take my 2 bolts from the water pump. I guess I can spin it now, and I can get it from up top. It's a lot easier. All right, so got one off. Here's our last little bolt. Now our water pump pulley is free, and it comes right up. And now we can get in our bolts out. Alright, you can see here. Should be 1, 2, 3, 6 of them. We could get 3 from down below and the other 3 from up top. Get this thing up. It was bad. I can move it with my hand and the whole thing shifts. So let's loosen it up and get it out. And if you do need to remove this bracket and your radiator hose, if you need to disconnect it, so you don't lose all your coolant, have some latex gloves ready with a rag inside them too, and shove one in here and shove one in the hose quick. You gotta do it quick, and then you won't lose as much coolant from the radiator, even though we might lose it from the water pump when we pop it, but at least you'll have some still left, so in theory. But alright, we're gonna continue. Alright guys, so I'm about to take the old pump off. You gotta check how it's sitting, and it's sitting like this, alright, with the little weeping hole on top. It's on top, so if you hold your pump like this, you know where your little bolts are, and you can remove them. So then I can't see anything under this bracket and know exactly where they're at, so I can get them off. So, and I can see my pump leaking right now. See it? But alright, let's continue. Guys, and at this point I'm using a ratchet, and I'm doing it all I feel. See, there's 1, 2, 3 right there from up top. I'm just breaking them free, and then I'll go down below and do the ones from down below. I'm using baby extension and a longer 10mm. So what I'm gonna do now, and then we're gonna take them off by hand. So I got 3 up top, pretty loose. And I'll go down below, get the other 3, and then this pump should be ready to come out. Okay, and down below, I took off my little extension. I'm only using the ratchet, and I'm getting my first one free. Got it free. Then my second one right there. The second one, and then my third one is right there. Make sure you look at your new one and you know where your holes are. Alright, so they're all free now. Now I can take them off by hand, or I can grab my little socket and use the socket without the... Alright, so just grab your socket, put it on your bolt. You already broke it free, and then just take it out. Do that to all 3. If you need to add an extension on it, add an extension so you get in there, which that's probably what I'm going to do for these 2 up top. This one's still kind of tight, so I'm going to loosen it up a little bit more. And I'm going to take the lower ones off, and we'll go up top, take those off, pop this off, clean it up, and then get my gasket and my pump ready and throw it on there. Alright, so there's longer 10mm. If you have a longer one, it'll work, but I have this little baby extension, and that's what's going to help me get in here on the spots that I can't reach. Or if you have a small 10mm with a small ratchet, then you probably use that. But alright, we're pretty much there. Let's get them out, and then make sure you have your touch pan ready, because it's going to gush. And then we'll continue. And then you guys, here's a perfect example why you shouldn't use your impact, because then you get stuck. And then you can't move anywhere, and then it's hard to switch it over. So I held it on too long. I'll just try to break it free a little bit. So now I gotta come in here with my wrench, turn my socket until I can release my impact. And it is an uncomfortable spot, but bring your hand in from in front of the crank pulley, and you can get your two lower ones. So you put your two lower ones, put it in between that little gap, and then that top one, if you have to, just use your ratchet and just quarter turn at a time. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. But if you squeeze your hand the same way, you can just use your two fingers and turn it out. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable, but you gotta do what you gotta do, guys. So I'm gonna ratchet it out a little bit more because it's still tight until I can hand turn it. Alright, I've got it enough. This is not the most comfortable position, but slowly, turn by turn, see how my hand is. Make sure you guys have your jack stands and everything if you're gonna be under the car, but there it is. I almost got it out. And then when we put it back in, we're gonna have to put it in the same way, guys, one at a time until we get it in. It'll be a lot easier. Start off your bolts on top if you have to. Oh, and I can see my other bolt, my top bolt of my water pump from down here, so I'll probably loosen it up from down here. And if I can, I'll take it off from down here because that bracket's up top. You see the bracket's gonna be kind of in your way. So you gotta do what you gotta do, slowly. Alright guys, so I got that third one loose from the bottom, but I do it from the top. And these other two, they're loose so I can get them with my hand. But that third one's a little hard to squeeze your hand in there, so use your socket. Once you break it loose, use your socket, see? And if you have to, I mean, just find yourself a nice angle, you might have to step up on something so you can get it, but I think I've got enough room here. I got these two ready to go, and the only thing holding the pump is the gasket. So that's one, this is two, and then you can see where my socket is for my third one. So that's it. This thing's ready to come out after this last one. Alright, here's our, don't lose them. They're all the same size. Now we come down here and just use our socket to get this one out. That's it, guys. So get the three from the top, three from the bottom. If you have to quarter turn at a time, it don't matter. You'll get it eventually. Avoids all the hassle of removing your headlight, your bumper, all that. It's bad enough the engine is so tight. You don't gotta go through so much work to get it out. I just gotta find the right angle, guys. Find the right angle, find the right finger to use. I'm using my middle finger now and my pointer finger to get this third one out. It's under the bracket here. We're almost out. There it is. Pow, just like that. Alright guys, now if you're at this point, you might be like, man, the pump doesn't fit. I can't get the pump through. You're right. Try to put it in normal, it's not going to fit. So what you do is put it in sideways like this, and it falls straight down into your cavity there. The only thing holding it is this harness here. This harness. So just find the right angle. So there you go, you want it to go down like that. Alright, it's going to go down like that. And then when you're down here in this pocket, then you could spin it and put it in the correct way. But to get it down in there past this bracket, you do have to go in sideways, alright? Sideways in between like this. Alright? And when you get down there, then you can spin it. Just have it, have the right side ready to go. So you don't want to have this bolt side facing down. You want to have this one. So then when you get down there and you spin it, it'll just go straight into place and you don't have to try to rotate it to get this on the correct side. That makes sense for you guys? So remember, it's not going to fit like this. You're not going to fit it like this. Look, you actually can. You actually can fit it, guys. You just got to finesse it. But it catches right there in this little tab, so. And then it doesn't come out easy. So avoid all the hassle. Just put it in like this. Unless you're ready to go, then I guess you could try like this. You can finesse it by aiming it down. If you want it sideways like this, you can get it through. Look at that, it will go through. Yep. So either way, the trick is just to have it sideways, guys. Sideways, not like this. So I'm gonna break the pump loose. Hopefully they just used the gasket and they didn't silicone it, or else I'm gonna have to clean it all up. I'd rather have the gasket and not the silicone. But alright, let's finish it off, guys. And then after that, we're gonna get our tensioner pulley out. We're just gonna replace the whole assembly. There's the bolt. Alright, but before I break the pump loose, I want to have my parts ready to go. So I'm full of a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna wipe it down, my pulley. Oops. It'll be alright. So I'm gonna clean it off and have it ready to go. And then we'll hit the pump with with my breaker bar and crack the seal, and then go from there. Alright guys, there it is. The pump is out. We're just gonna clean it up, put a new one in, make sure you catch all that fluid. And guys, I'm saving myself a headache of trying to keep this gasket in place while I install it, so I'm gonna put some RTV on the pump side only, and then I'm gonna set my gasket. That way it keeps it in place, and then I can just worry about installing the bolts and not worry about this moving on me or losing it once I get it in there. So let's do that. I got a small amount, and now I can put my gasket down, line up my bolt holes, and it'll stay in place while I drop it in there, because there's nothing more annoying than having this move out of the way every single time. So, alright, I'm gonna start with my top bolts, then I'm gonna do my bottom bolts, and I'm gonna leave the bolt under the bracket for last, because that one's gonna be a pain. So, alright, we got it on there. Now let's put it in. That's good enough. Like I said, don't go crazy, it's just to keep your gasket in place. Alright guys, and I found it easier to put one bolt through the hole before you put your pump in there, and just line up the hole as you're pressing your pump into place, and then at the same time you start threading it on, and then it stays in place while you get your other bolts in there. You don't have to tighten it up all crazy, just enough, because if you try to set it in place and then let it go, it's just gonna fall out. So I put this one, which is the one with the bigger access, I put it in through the pump before I set it in place, and I kind of just made sure this went into its hole, and then I started tightening it up, and now it's held in place. Now I can put my other bolts in, and I mean, I'm using my old bolts, so you can either put a little bit of thread locker, a light one, and don't do it at the tip of the bolt, do it towards the end. That way it's just enough to lock it in place. But and then obviously look up your torque specs. If you know you do everything by the book, I know how tight it was when I took it off, so I'm gonna get it that tight, and then I'll give it a little quarter turn, and it should be good to go. So that's how I do it. Alright, I got my 3 bolts from up top. These 2 that you can see right there, obviously I did it with my left hand, but the third one, use your right hand and just go in like this, and once you get it in the hole, you can turn it in as much as you can until it's all the way inside, and then when you go back in with your ratchet, you don't have to do a lot of ratcheting. So those 3 are in place. And then we can do our 3 lower ones, and then once that's in place, we're gonna take out our tension or pulley. Hopefully we can get it out. So, and that thing, we'll just have to leave it as is. This is not bad, but you could hear that it's getting a little dry, so you gotta pick your battles. We can always go back in there and mess with it, or jack up the engine a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see. When the bolt in the tensioner, we're gonna just take it out as much as we can, and then you're gonna have to remove the tensioner with the bolt in place. So you got the frame there, it's probably gonna hit the frame, so just gotta get it out all the way and then remove it with the bolt in place. And then when you put the new one in, you're gonna have to put the bolt in the part and then drop it in and then tighten it. Alright guys, we got our 2 lower bolts in. Obviously I already told you how to put your hand. You put your hand in between the crank pulley and the power steering for this first one. For the second one, you can hand tighten it all the way in, and then that third one, it's a little bit more uncomfortable, but you just reach in a little bit further. You just keep turning until you get it as far in there as possible, which it should be almost all the way like that. And then you just ratchet tighten it up, and pow, there it is. And since we're going to be replacing the serpentine belt and that tensioner pulley, we gotta wait for the parts, because I sent somebody to get some parts. And yeah, since I didn't have the tool to remove the tensioner, I just used a screwdriver and put it in between like that. It might be a little harder when we're ready to install our belt, but I'm gonna see if I can come up with something. So we'll worry about that when the time comes. If I have to, I'll go get the tool, I guess. But the tensioner is it's in such an ugly spot. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to get it out with the ratchet. We'll see. But I don't know if you can hear it. You can hear it spinning a little bit. But alright, let's see. Let's figure out what size that is, and then after we tighten down our water pump, we're gonna try to get this one out, and then we'll keep going. Alright guys, we're tightening our bolts, and I'm kind of doing crisscross, so I'm doing the middle ones just snug, not all the way, and then I'm going up top and doing my top one across from it, just snug. Then I'm switching over to my other one, tightening that up, and I'll go down below and do that one, and that way it tightens up kind of even all the way around. And then when I have them all in there tight, then I'll go back and crank them down the rest of the way. So that's what I'm doing, tying them crisscross. Alright, we're almost there guys, we're almost there. Alright, just enough. Now we're going down below, doing the one across from it. Just keep going like that until you do all 6. Then you should be ready to go. Alright guys, so I guess you can take the tensioner off. I was just trying to loosen the center bolt thinking that's what was keeping it on, but it's actually got 2 bolts, one on this side and one on this side. And you have to remove your idler pulley to get to the bolt that's behind it. So we're going to do that. It's a 15mm and we got it loose. You gotta use a wrench because it hits up against the subframe. And once you get this one out, you should be able to access the bolt in the back. See, you don't have to move forward enough. Get the bolt in the back, because otherwise you have to jack up the whole engine. But can you guys see it? I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's right there. There it is. That's one. Then you got one on the other side, I guess, right there. I don't know how to get to it without removing the bracket and everything up top. Alright guys, so I guess you can get the tensioner. It's got 2 bolts, one right there and one right there. You have to take out your idler pulley as far back as possible. So 15mm. And then your top bracket is 15 as well. And then this lower bracket here is 18. 2 bolts, 18. And that comes out. And then you have access to the 2 bolts holding the tensioner. We're going to reuse the tensioner, we're just going to replace the pulley. So let's knock that out so we can get that going. And then we can put our water pump pulley on, and our belt, and our motor mount, and finish this up. Alright, so for the bolt on the side next to the water pump, I use the regular size 13 3/8, and then on the one to the right, I use the small ratchet with a 13 small socket. Let's get those out, and then I guess the tensioner should come out. Alright, so we got both of them out. Now, what else do we need to get out? It's kind of tight in there still. Maybe I could pry it out, we'll see. So we have to take that center one out too, the 13. Use the small 1/8 ratchet with the small socket. Alright, I feel it coming loose now. The bolt isn't going to come out, so you got to take it out in one piece. Like that. And now can replace the pulley. Alright, center bolt is a 13 also. And your pulley just comes right out. And you can put your new one in. Put your gap. Put your bolt. I use my 1/2-inch impact. Alright. No noise, no more grinding. Nice. Alright, I'm going to put it back on just like we took it off. 13mm bolt first, and then the 2 on the sides, and then we put on our belt. Alright guys, I put my water pump pulley. Well, I got the space. I'm going to put my tensioner back in, my idler. But the belt runs behind the tensioner, so I'm probably gonna put my belt in first and then tighten my tensioner up. Alright, draw my tensioner in with my bolt in place in the middle. Now I can put my bolts in on the side. Get those on. Hopefully I can get that one next to the water pump in. Pulley's not in the way. I should have put my tensioner in first. We'll see. I think I can clear it. Alright. Alright, I'm gonna put my belt behind the tensioner before I tighten it up all the way. That was a little easier for me when I run it. Now let's get these bolts in. And we can put our brackets back. Then the door mount and the belt. I'll probably do the belt before the mount. and get that all over with. This air tensioner or idler here has to go back in. Let's do that now. Alright guys, using my breaker bar to finish tightening this up. And then we continue with the idler, and our belt, then our brackets, then our fuse plate, and then our mount, or our mount, and our fuse plate. We're almost there. Alright guys, got my 313. I'm gonna put my idler, and after that I'm gonna run my belt, and then I'll put my brackets, my upper hose, my torque mount, and then my plate, and then we can put the coolant in there, bleed it, and we should be ready to go. Idler bolt in from the bottom. It's the easiest way. It's a 15mm. Tighten it up. Finish it off with a wrench now. Alright guys, so I got it on, and I didn't have the tool to move the tensioner, and it was only me, so this is how it's run. It goes from the alternator around your idler, around your AC, around your crank, then back up around your tensioner, and then back down to your power steering pump, and then up over your water pump, over your tensioner, and around your alternator. Now, if you're doing it alone, it's hard to get it over your idler when you crank down on the tensioner. So what I did was I used these pliers, these vice grips, and I just ran the belt around all the other pulleys, and I left my crank out. I left the belt out of my, off of my crank. And then what I did is I came in with these vice grips. I came in with the vice grips, and I just held onto the body of the tensioner, and like this, I was able to loosen the tension, and then I just put it over my my crank pulley. And that's how I did it. Otherwise, there's no way of getting it. So I just grabbed onto here, and then you go that way. You go towards the firewall. Otherwise, if you have the tool, obviously it's easy to crank down, and then you could get it over. But that's how I did it. And then you do have to slide the belt behind the tensioner pulley, just flatten it out and get it back there. But that's how it is. I'll have a picture of the diagram. But that's how I got around not having the tool. When I first removed it, I literally just stuck a screwdriver in here and pressed down and then popped this off. But to put it back on, it was not easy. You couldn't put a screwdriver in here because then the pulley spun. So I just used a large vice grips, and I just gripped on to the sides, and then I pried down, like I said. And then once you run it, just leave your crank off if you're gonna do it this way. But yeah, so we're almost there. I'll put the bracket. Put the brackets back on, and then put our radiator hose. And then we're gonna do our mount. And we're gonna do our mount, and then we're gonna do our fuse plate, and then we're gonna do our fuse box. Hook up our fog light and our horn, and then run the harnesses back in place, and then just plug in our battery wires, and we should be good. Here's a better view. So the alternator, the belt goes over the alternator, over your water pump, over your power steering, then up in between your water pump and your crank, around your tensioner, back down over the crank, then over the AC, then you come up over your idler, and then back around your alternator. But like I said, if you don't have the tool, you can use some vice grips and just leave your crank, leave the belt off the crank pulley, and then when you take the tension off the tensioner, you can slide the belt over the crank pulley from underneath. Alright, got our first bracket in there. Sign that up. I really can't fit a ratchet in here, so hand tighten it until you can. It's 18mm. Then we're going to do our top bracket, that's 15mm. Now we're going to do our mount. And then our upper hose. And then the fuse box plate, the fuse box, battery wires. And then we can put coolant in and bleed it. Alright guys, put the bracket in. Put the hose. Alright, we got our upper hose, our clamp back in place. Now I can do my dog bone torque mount. Bolt that down. Then we could do our ground, our harness, then our plate, and then our fuse box, and then we're ready to put the wheel on, put the cover on, and then bleed the cooling system. She's ready to go. Oh, and then don't forget your reservoir. This mount gave me such a hard time, so I had to take this top bracket off first, and then get the mount in there, and then put the bracket back on. So I wasn't able to finesse it for some reason. So here we go again. It shouldn't be that hard. Maybe I wasn't going back far enough because there's a little opening right here, but it is what it is. Now that we got that mount in finally, we can drop our hose. Jesus, gave me such a hard time. The last time I replaced this on a Traverse, this one was the same thing. It was a lot easier, but on this one, on the Acadia, I guess you do have to kind of finesse it. This bracket is kind of too low, I guess you can't. But I took it out with the bracket on, so I understand. I should have went back in the same way maybe. I was just not getting the right angle. But it is what it is. Alright, let's continue. And we're going to connect all our harnesses to the fog light, the horn. We're going to do our ground, and then we're going to do the fuse plate. Alright, fuse box plate is in place. And we're going to do our ground. Connect the fog light down here. It's the fog light, horn, and this we'll put right back in its place there. Let's do ground. Let's do our ground first, and then we'll continue. Alright, the ground wires in place. Now we can clip our harnesses back where they go. Pop our fuse box in place. And then hook up our battery wires. Put on our splash guard, and then our wheel, and we should be done, guys. One more thing, guys, when you do put your plate in your fuse box, that big harness has to go behind the plate and this one in front of the plate. Make sure you do that, because then you're gonna have to redo it. Alright, hopefully that saves you some trouble, because otherwise it ain't gonna fit. Alright guys, everything's put back together. Battery wires, fuse box, reservoir. Putting the cover under the wheel well. Got our Torx in there, just got to tighten it down. Just pop our little clips in there. Put our wheel on. Just put some coolant, bleed it, and she's ready to go. Alright, here's my diagram. Alright guys, the Acadia is back on the road. Water pump, tensioner, pulley, just a pulley, the anchor mount, and I think that's it. We were trying to get the belt, but the person at the auto parts couldn't look up the belt. She wanted to measure it. I know, it's in the system. Is there more than one? She didn't know. She just said, we have so many belts, I won't know how to find it. It's on the computer, but I guess we'll put that in later.